Welcome back, everyone. Next up is a speedrun of Sega Sonic the Hedgehog by Spectral. So, you can introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I am Spectral, and this is Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, a very rare, unique entry among all the Sonic titles. It is a Japan exclusive isometric arcade platformer that uses a trackball as a controller. And with me, I have another amazing runner of the game. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm S2.
All right, I'm gonna jump right in here. This is a very fast-paced game, so I'm gonna let Stu do a lot of the commentary. And we have three characters, and your default is Sonic, but I'm gonna pick Mighty because this is his debut game, I believe, in the series. So I'm gonna start in 3, 2, 1, go.
So we've already seen the first cutscene in the game skipped there. You saw it for maybe a brief second, a picture of the controls, one button, and a trackball. Very simple control scheme, but don't be fooled. This game has very complex mechanics. Spectral here is going to be breaking out of this prison, moving in a certain way to get through with only breaking one bar. Normally, you're supposed to have to break two. Um, in between, this game is kind of runs at a strange pace of slow then fast then slow then fast, where you get moments like this where there are cutscenes and not a whole lot player input, and then we're going to be jumping right into a hugely technical moment here. This part, there's a couple things going on. Boulder glitch right here. There should be a boulder chasing him, and there's not. That means he's going fast, as fast as possible. And also, you're kind of seeing Mighty twitch around while he moves. That's because this game is the way the controls are set up, the diagonals just don't really work. And so Spectral is going to have to kind of dither his movement when moving a lot of times on a lot of different angles to get the character to move. He's also jumped through these bars, which is another glitch recently found. Very tight, only a few pixels that you can actually pass through that. And with all of that, getting down this last straight and exiting the first level. So that is one. Is there 6 or 7 levels? I'm blanking on what it is now.
Me too, actually.
Yeah, it's like 6 or 7. I want to say it's 6. So we should be 1/7. Okay, 1/7 of the way through the game already.
And
I
we'll
do
thankful.
have a question since you mentioned earlier that the game normally uses a trackball controller. Do speedrunners use a special controller for this, or is it just a standard controller you guys use?
I'm using a keyboard, but some runners do use a analog controller. For the longest time, we had problems getting analog controls to run with this game due to MAME configuration, and then we eventually kind of figure out the problem. But I think a lot of the runners kind of got to use the keyboard by that point. So I'm using just the standard keyboard, and that's the main reason why I have to dither my inputs for diagonal movement.
All right. Does it pose a major disadvantage to use a keyboard over a controller?
I imagine in top level controller could be a little faster, but from what I've seen, we don't really have any top level controller runners at the moment, and that could change in the future.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so Spectral here, grabbing a lot of really tight movement. A lot of these things he's passing around are small windows, either a few pixels or a few frames in which you can get them. And just absolutely beautiful work on Icy Isle there. Now, I think Spectral is going to agree with me here that this next level coming up, in Desert Dodge, once you kind of get the feel for this speed run, is actually becomes one of the hardest ones to really save all the time that there is to save on it. I know I lose a lot of my runs in this level, so
I agree. This is the most technical level by far. There are really tight turns and a lot of platforming that is deceptively difficult because of the isometric angles. I think this game has a lot of tricks that are much more difficult than it meets the eye.
yeah, so those two holes that he's just jumped over are one of the hardest parts. If you fall in them, which is very easy if you don't get your jumps timed perfectly, then you can lose a lot of time. You can take like 2 deaths to one hole because of a weird way that like lots of different stage elements interact with each other. And just overall, these platforms are very tight. You saw earlier, Spectral clipped kind of a corner, and Mighty pretty much just like magneted to it to go into his falling animation. Spectral was able to get out of that very quickly, but it's very easy if you're near edges of platforms for your character to just kind of stick to them and try to stay there and fall off. This is an arcade game, so it was kind of made in mind that you'd uh, spend coins into it, and so the money making is when you die a lot. So the game is very constantly trying to get you to die to things like that. But once again, Spectral does an excellent job here of just flying through the stage like a pro.
Yeah, this game is definitely a quarter muncher, and this difficulty goes up exponentially as we are going through the levels here. We have a nice little setup here in Trap Tower, if you want to explain that. I think this was discovered as a part of the TAS development.
Yeah, so this one level is how it works is there's going to be these plates that crush you as they come onto the screen, and there will be another level that has a similar mechanic, so you'll see kind of how it's supposed to be played more into effect in the last level. But here Spectral's going to line himself up on this outer edge, get hit, and he's going to be able to pass the first two sections of crushers here without having to actually go through them. So that actually, believe it or not, loses a little bit of time just on that setup, but it's actually going to come into a little bit of a time save later. You may have noticed Spectral is trying his best to avoid rings, and in the next level, that's going to really come into play. Another big skip here at the end of this level, if you get lined up on this ladder right here on the far right, you're going to be able to climb right through those bombs and just go straight up the ladder. So almost everything on that entire stage has been skipped. Very, very cool, very technical stage once again. Um, that's kind of how this game is. It's not a whole lot of remembering. Some games are, especially games with a lot of uh, route options. This game kind of pushes you forward in it's very linear. So there's a lot of technical movement that Spec has to do to save time. But coming into Landslide Limbo now, we are going to see at the end of this stage the first boss, the first and only boss in the game. Yes, there is a boss fight. But first here, let's talk about that health management I was just talking about. Spec was avoiding rings so his health wouldn't go back up so that he can take a death here, which is going to skip a really long cutscene of these vines. If you grab onto them, it takes a while before you can actually jump back off of them, and it's faster to die there and respawn on the other side of the platform. So from this point forward, Spec can now collect as many rings as he wants and pick up as much health as he wants. And at the end of this running section here, there's going to be a little hill climb, and then we are going to go into the first boss. Now, there is a glitch that we can do that will skip the boss, essentially. It'll let Spec take all of the boss's health down in one hit. We're going to see if he can line it up here. It's pretty much pixel perfect, so nope, not happening. Like I said, it's such a precise trick. It's not going to happen every time, and that's okay. Spec is still doing a good job here of getting hits in very quickly on this boss, which is good because of the angle it's at. It can be very hard to get the boss to register hits, and you have to hit it 10 times. But Spec was able to get all of his hits to register and clear the boss in very good time.
Would
This
there be
really
time
is.
for me to read some donations?
I
Yeah.
think this would be the perfect time.
So, first off, we have a $50 donation from Adam R with no comment attached, and then we have a $5 donate. We have a $5 donation from Tempest Mask 1000 saying, "I'm a simple Sega Sonic runner. I see Spectral and S2, I donate. It's not a matter of if, but when. After all, the hive mind that is the need to go fast connects us all in a web of." I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Best of luck, Spectral.
Shout out to
Thank you.
Tempest Mask.
Yep.
He has showcased this game in quite a few marathons. So nice having you in chat.
Yeah, I will say this game has been on many marathons. Tempest, Spectral, myself, many others have shown it off. And I just want to say I think this game has a really nice community, and I appreciate anybody who runs it because it's been very fun to interact with other runners of this game.
You may have noticed there that while I was climbing, the screen did not scroll for for a little bit. And in this game, deceptively, for a speed platformer, the tightest turns do not mean the fastest times, because what we have to ultimately do is advance the camera. And if we take our turns too tight around corners, sometimes the camera gets stuck, which means we don't make any progress in the level. So it's really a matter of picking the best lines, which can sometimes be counterintuitively really wide turns or really slow looking turns.
So that section that Spectral just did with those rafts is one of the biggest beginner traps for this run. I feel like new runners most frequently will say that that is the hardest part of the game, and I can agree with that. It's definitely hard until you've learned the rhythm for it, and Spectral just destroyed that. And here we are coming into the last level, which has kind of the similar setup to those crushers, but they come in on a rhythm depending on where the camera is. So Spec is going to be trying to line up with certain pixels on the floor so that he can either jump or go under them like he's just done there. And there's two sections of these crushers and then a downward descent, and then that will be the end of the run. So amazingly fast that he's been able to close out all of the game like this. And yeah, we'll see how he does on this last section here. Looks like he's going for a little bit higher there.
The lines are very precise in this section because the crushers, I will probably have to get hit here on purpose. The crushers only start moving once they're on the screen, so the line we take directly impacts the cycle that we're going to have to go through, and we basically memorize one or two cycles that are the fastest. But if we end up making a mistake and input a couple frames late, we're going to be completely off time, off beat, and then we'll have to improvise, which is really difficult because this is really the part of the game where the quarter munching really kicks into gear, and the game is trying to basically get a game over any way possible.
Yep. And so now this is going to be the last part. Eggman's going to run out of here, and a timer is going to start counting down, and there will be a door at the bottom. When Spec goes through that, that'll be the end of the game. So I'll let you make any final comments you want to say, Spec.
Well, the only thing I want to point out is the fact that Eggman technically paced out Sonic and his friends by leaving this place well before us. But that's time.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a pretty fast-paced game. You blink, you miss a lot of the tricks. It is a difficult game, but I think it's also a really fun game once you get a feel for it. I want to give a big shout-outs to all the Sega Sonic runners, S2, Hypnotics, Tempest Mask, Hyperlink, Broken Hyperlink. So big shout-outs to the community and people who have contributed to this run over the years. And I would like to thank the S2 again for the amazing commentary, because this game is very hectic, so it can help a lot to have someone who really knows what they're talking about to provide awesome commentary, just like S2 has.
Congrats on a great run. I think you really nailed it with saying, it's such a blink and you miss it type of game. You absolutely flew through it to the point where, it can be, like you're saying, troublesome when you're hitting every trick to explain all of them. There's certainly things that you did that we weren't able to talk about. Really impressive run there. Good job on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, once again, I'd also like to extend that shout out to the Sega Sonic community, both runners and task makers out there. As you're saying, those tasks that have been made have been really instrumental in the route. So shout outs to those guys who have been working on those as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for being on here. It was a really fun run to watch.
Thank you.